Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
K-pop Demon Hunters Haja Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
All right, here we go. Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and today we simplify saving, investing, and financial planning with a legend in the space. New York Times columnist and financial planner Carl Richards joins us for a wide-ranging discussion about how to manage your money, goals, and life in a simple and effective way. In our headline segment, advisors are wondering about options. How exactly do options work? Should you add them to your strategy? We'll chime in. And you know it, I'm also going to swoop in halfway through the show with my mind-bending trivia that you can totally show off to all your friends, or both of them, like me. And now, two guys who are the best friends your money could have. It's Joe and OG.
That's right. Welcome to your Money Mentors show. I am Joe Saul-Sehy. I'm so happy that you're here. It's another Wednesday, and that means OG's on the mic. How are you, buddy?
I am live in living color.
It is a fantastic day here in Texas. We got beautiful blue skies.
Late fall, or as we call it, summer.
I am about to head out for the beauty of West Virginia, and I think we might have missed the peak of fall color there, but I can't wait
Just a little bit. I mean, it's close. I bet you're close.
New River Gorge, Dollywood. We're going to go to Dollywood.
Obviously.
Going to go visit a coal mine. We'll actually go see some of the old coal mines in the national park.
You drive around, you see them.
Looking forward to all of that. But today...
Cool state. Not a cool border. You go, really? That's the design? That's what the map guy decided?
That's it. The squiggly line. Like he was drunk when he made West Virginia. Like
a little point at the very top. Like, what's the point thing for?
Well, his hand
Sneeze.
got all...
Achoo.
Oh, sorry, Marilyn. We had to take,
my bad.
Had to take part of that. We got a great show today. You know why? Because the guest talking upstairs, OG, you walk right by him. I don't even know if you recognize him. Carl Richards is here.
Oh,
the Carl Richards, Mr. Behavior Gap, the guy that...
Oh, there's a guy that does drawing all that stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
For many, many years.
That's why I didn't notice him. I thought he was I thought we commissioned him on a project.
we, for so many years... all got to have the fun of, you'd open up the New York Times and there was Carl Richards, the sketch guy.
Mm-hmm.
And once a week, he had a column in the New York Times. But here, he's with us. We went all tactical on Monday when Anna was here. If you didn't have a chance to listen to that, we answered a bunch of great stacker questions. Well, today, we're going to get much more philosophical with Carl, because that's Carl. Carl talks about, you know what? There's all this math, OG, all this math, and yet, it's not the math that usually trips us up.
It's not the math.
How far into your career were you when you realized that becoming like a psychologist, a money psychologist, was a big part of your role?
I was today years old. I can't answer that. I mean, a lot of people would look at the time frame when I started this work, late 90s, and say, oh my gosh, what a terrible time. You know, you got the peak of the bull market in the late 90s, and then
immediately into the crash
kicked in for the next 11 years. And I think that because of that, we learned so much about expectations and communication and staying the course and all those things during that 10, 11 year period at the beginning of my career, that anytime the market's down now, it's like 20%, like 20%, child play,
been there.
And I actually am kind of worried about the investor of today that has not seen anything but 15, 17 years of the market going straight up. And, there's been the occasional blip and obviously COVID and that sort of deal, but I don't think the average investor right now is equipped with the memory of how sometimes it goes for an extended period of time. And so you got to be ready for that.
Well, I worry about, for the same reason, I worry about the young advisor.
Yeah.
Who hasn't been
advisor or investor. Absolutely.
Yeah. You're trying to help other people control their emotion. It truly is all about controlling your emotions. What I love about Carl Richards is his ability to take these math problems and talk about what truly is the jumble of emotions we have around money and dissect them and really take these complex arguments and these complex things and go, you know what? It's not as complex as we make it, which is why he was able to very simply put things into sketch form for so many years. So today we're diving in with Carl Richards on what promises to be, I can assure you, a wide-ranging discussion about your money, about your emotions, about your relationships. And man, get ready to take some notes. But before Carl comes down to the basement, we got a couple sponsors to make sure we can keep on keeping on. You don't pay any money for any of this goodness. So we're going to hear from them. And then Carl Richards coming down to Mom's Basement. You may not know that when we started Stacking Benjamins, it was a blog. And even then, just the startup cost, I remember thinking, is this the right thing? And what if I write things and nobody comes, right? Well, luckily, that didn't end up happening. But starting something new isn't just hard. It's terrifying. There's so much work. You're not sure whether it's going to work out. You're not sure if anybody's going to read it. And then we change it to a podcast. Is anybody actually going to listen, right? What if nobody wants all the stuff that we have? Well, had I used Shopify, it would have been even easier, because with their expertise, their helpful tools, and their easy to use platform, that's something that would have made Stacking Benjamins more effective much, much more quickly. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Names you've heard of like Heinz and Mattel, Shopify, Gymshark, Aviator Nation, Allbirds, also all Shopify. Get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. And did I mention that iconic purple Shop Pay button? It's used by millions of businesses around the world. It's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. It also helps boost conversions, meaning less carts going abandoned and more sales for you. So you're stacking Benjamins much more quickly. Time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/SB. Go to shopify.com/SB. That's shopify.com/SB.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
And I'm so happy we have this gentleman back in Mom's Basement. We got to get him a frequent visitor card. Carl Richards. That has been a while, Carl.
I would not even like to figure out how long it's been, because I'm like, it's been a decade. It feels like yesterday.
I know. And yet, when I said hello to you, just while we were upstairs talking to Mom, it was like 3 days have passed since we talked. I always feel like 3 days have passed since we spoke last.
That's exactly right. I have this unrealistic expectation that everybody's my best friend, and it gets me in trouble a lot, but it often serves me really well. So that's good. I felt the same way.
I do like the idea, though, and this is a whole different podcast, of beginning with people are inherently good versus people are inherently bad. Like just going in and thinking they're going to be my buddy.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I don't care whether it's true or not. In the inherent question, I have an opinion, but I don't even care. I would much rather live as if it was true that people are inherently good.
100%.
Yeah.
You write, as I think all of our stackers know, about the intersection of behavior and finance. Finance at its heart is a math problem. And yet we try to fix these problems with calculators. And you've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for a long time. Why do we keep trying to solve these emotional issues with calculators, Carl?
Yeah, it's funny, Joe. I mean, I have a very big calculator and I know how to use it.
You don't want to brag, but
no, I'm bragging. I have the biggest calculator and I know how to use it. And yet, this took me a decade or so. I mean, I'm 25 years into this, and for the first decade, I thought that calculator would solve everything. And here's the dilemma. I kept running into, if money is a math problem, how come I end up in a fight? Right? Like 2 + 2 always equals 4, but 2 + 2 never equals envy. And how come I'd end up in a fight with a spouse, a partner, a child, a friend over money if it's a math problem? And it turns out that indeed it probably should be a math problem. Like in the end, like maybe in our most enlightened relationship with money is purely neutral and it's a tool, because it is. Like it's a 0 and 1 in a cloud. But between here and enlightenment, it turns out money is just a series of stories. And so I think the reason we keep getting hung up by this is money and money conversations end up being like an electric fence that you didn't expect or didn't know was electric. You thought it was just a fence, and then you touch it and suddenly there's all this energy. And that energy comes from the stories we've layered on top of it.
Well, and it's interesting because when you talk about the stories, you also like to point out that two of us can look at the same story. We can look at the same. It's funny. I have this friend who taught me that a negotiation's like a cube, or discussion's like a cube. I'm looking at a cube, you're looking at a cube, but you're looking at one side of the cube. I'm looking at the other side of the cube. I feel like, Carl, money's also a cube. How can we have the same thing and you look at it completely differently than I do?
Yeah, it's astonishing. I remember coming home one day from a tough day of work in the coal mines. I was feeling that way, sort of like beast of burden. And I walked in, I'm sure I was using this voice and making this face. And I was like, oh, it's so hard. And I'm sure I groaned a few times. And my wife was like, I mean, there was a little bit of like, get over yourself in her voice, which I appreciate. But there was also this, like, she said this crazy thing. And it was astonishing to me. And I love this language around, like, this thought had never crossed my mind, because I was like, making money is so hard. It's so tough. And she was like, hey, what if it was fun and easy? And I remember, this is 100% metaphor, but I remember wanting, like, actually, I won't even use the metaphor, but I just remember being angry. Sort of like, what do you mean? Because that thought had never crossed my mind. And she was viewing it from a completely different perspective, at least in that moment. She was viewing it from a completely different perspective. She was thinking something that had never even occurred to me. Not only do I not know how to think that way, I didn't even know you were allowed to think that way. That to me is such an important piece. It's why travel is important. It's why conversations we were talking about, regional differences. It's why hearing from people who are different from you, who bring different perspectives, different traditions, like some of the stories. I mean, I've traveled all over the world. We lived in New Zealand for 4 years and London for a year. And some of the stories you hear from people about their relationship with money, you're suddenly like, whoa, there's a different way of thinking about this. I think that's how it all happens. I mean, we get into the science of standing at the corner and seeing a car accident. You're standing shoulder to shoulder with somebody and you have police reports taken, and the police reports, you're just like, I don't even know what that guy was watching. I mean, you could go to a movie with your spouse, come out of the movie, see your best friends. You hear your spouse describe the movie and you're like, you were in a different movie.
You see this right now online with politics.
Oh, don't even. Yeah, we can't.
You know what I mean? No, we won't, but it's 100% what you see. You and another person looking at the same exact thing, and you're like, what the hell are you looking at? Are you kidding me?
No, it's clear that I think politics is a really good lens for this, because there are people in my life that I have conversations with that it's become very apparent. They live in a different world. And like, I'm not saying that metaphorically. They actually live in a different reality than me. And I'm not saying it's bad or good in any way. I'm just saying we both live in different realities because of the stories and mainly the lens through which we're viewing the world. And that absolutely applies to money. I mean, scarcity and abundance, hard or easy. Like, we go through the whole list, fear or greed. There's a whole list of lenses through which we're viewing the world that mean that, I mean, I think you and I live in closer realities, but they're definitely different.
I love how we open this conversation with strategic talk, right? This high level stuff of money is emotion. Calculators are good, but if it was just a calculator problem, then we'd all be on the same page. And yet we can look at things from these different aspects. I want to get a little technical for a second. Like, how do we start to bridge these gaps with people? Like, what's the point here? Because what I heard was probably travel more, talk to more people. Is it be open more about having these money conversations? What's the tactic?
Yeah, let's get like super tactical on a very like a close level. I love the idea of starting. There's a great David White poem called Start Close In. Like, start close in, because it's fun to think about, the things we've already mentioned, travel, but what's even closer? And what's even closer is the person you're sitting next to at dinner, or a client, or a colleague, or a child, or a friend. What if we just started learning to talk about money in a layered and nuanced way? Let's use Stephen Covey's statement about like the last thing you'd want to do. I'm paraphrasing. The last thing you'd want to do is spend your whole life climbing a ladder only to find out it's leaning against the wrong wall. And we spend a lot of time talking about ladders and walls, like which investment, which budgeting app, which credit card. Those conversations are useful and good, but not if they're leaning against the wrong wall. Not if we haven't had and like, one more terrible analogy. Like, if we're going to go on a trip, the way we approach personal finance right now feels to me like an endless debate. And again, valuable, an endless debate about whether to take a plane, a train, or an automobile on a trip. If we've decided to take a car, which car? What type of car? What's the gas mileage? But what I'm saying is, could we have some conversation about where we're going? Or at least in conjunction with what form of transportation you want to take on your trip? Could we get clear about where you want to go first? And also realizing that where you want to go will change mid-journey, mid-trip. You might see a store you want to stop at, or a mountain you want to climb, or a river you want to swim in. And so start by having these conversations close at home. Like, here's one I've been having with everybody I can corner. What's your first memory of, in fact, Joe, I'm actually curious about this. What's your first memory of money?
My first memory of money.
Let me just pause while you're thinking about this. Everybody listening, this is shocking. And it's not shocking to me anymore. You talk about this for a living.
Yeah. Over 30 years between the time I was a financial planner and now financial media.
Yeah. And your listeners would be familiar with Josh Brown. Talks more than anybody about money. I asked him, same response.
We had a great time with Josh on the show. This would be a fun 3-person discussion, by the way.
But the fact that you haven't ever been asked or thought about. So now what is it?
Yeah. So I can't think of the earliest one, but the one that strikes me is the first time where I got the difference, where I started to figure out value, was actually kind of late, Carl. It was in 8th grade. In 8th grade, I was working in this cornfield job, doing this job called detasseling. You take the tops off of corn. And I remember I spent the entire time I was out there dreaming about this 12-speed bicycle I wanted to buy. And it was this amazing bicycle. I was going to start training to travel across the United States when I was older, and I could do it. I always saw these rides across America. I thought it was really cool. So I saved the entire time that I'm out there. I save up some ridiculous, to me at the time, amount of money. I think like $450.
Right.
And I go to the store. My mom takes me to the store, and with my own money, I buy this 12-speed bike. And the second week I had it, I'm riding very quickly. I hit the wrong brake, which was the front brake instead of the back brake. My back wheel comes across the front. I go down in a heap, blood all over the place, but it snapped off the gear shifter. And I didn't have the money to get it replaced. And then I realized then that I spent my whole summer, like for the next 6, 7, 8 months, when I didn't have time to work because my mom said I need to focus on school. School became my job, focus on, all the other stuff. Didn't have time or money to replace it. The thing sat. And I remember thinking about, was that the right use of money at that time? If I hadn't thought through the ability to be able to maintain the bike, to actually have the ability, I'd even thought through the fact that I probably wouldn't be able to ride it much during the school year,
See, I would be tempted to hijack it's all that I can do to not hijack this entire show and ask you more about that. What did that feel like? And then the next question
Episode 2 or of Carl Richards on.
Yeah, the next question I would want to ask, like, how many of your listeners couldn't answer that question for their spouse or partner of 10, 20, 30 years? I would
think if I had trouble with it and Josh Brown had trouble with it, I bet 95% of us have problems with that.
Yeah, Josh had no problem with the story, but I asked him, I'm like, how come you've ever talked about that? And he's like, I haven't talked about that in 25 years or 30 years. How come you haven't? He's like, no one ever asked, which is amazing. So tactically, I didn't know that about my wife of 27 years at the time when I asked her publicly on the show. I didn't know the answer. I've been having that conversation with my kids. Here's another interesting one. Sort of like what I would have asked you at the end, because that's such a great story. I would have loved to have said, like, what do you make of that now? And I would have loved to have said, like, hey, can you go back there for a minute? Like, what did that feel like when you had that realization that you spent your whole summer? What was the feel? I would be really curious about the feeling. And then I'd probably move on to like, hey, in junior high, were you one of the rich kids or the poor kids? And then you would probably tell me some story. And then I'd remember to ask, and you'd say something like, oh, we didn't have a lot. People say that all the time. Oh, we were middle class, or, oh, we didn't have a lot. Favorite question there. And again, this is all tactical. Start close in. These are the kind of conversations. This isn't about a budgeting app. Is my favorite question around anybody saying something like, we didn't have a lot, but we were fine, or any like statement. Favorite question is to say, hey, how did you know? And then you get to this super, like, one day I was at school and I didn't realize it, but I only had one pair of tough skin jeans. And this is a real story from my friend Aaron. I was at school and there was this girl I really liked and she was showing some interest in me, like teenage sort of stuff. We were playing football after school and I got grass stains on my jeans. And I didn't even think about it. I wore it the next day. And this girl was from a more well-to-do family. And she said, why didn't you wash your jeans? And I told her I only had one pair and she never talked to me again. And you're like, come on. How is that informing? Josh's story is informing Josh's life, his story about losing $100 at sleepaway camp. My friend Aaron's story, I could go on and on, but that tactically, that's what I'm talking about. What if we had some of those conversations gently with deep empathy, just to understand, not to teach anybody anything, but just to, I get so excited. Like I could barely contain myself about how badly I want to ask you more questions. So it becomes an addiction of giving people space. That to me is how we solve this problem.
Do you think that this was not on my sheet either? So you guys were throwing out my prep sheet.
Yeah.
But do you think this is an issue in financial planning, is that I feel like the financial planners who really get it realize how much they are having to become much more of a psychologist and maybe even a sociologist, and how important that is to really connecting with your client and helping to guide them toward better decisions. I feel like there's this gulf right now in the financial planning world between the people who are becoming Taylor Swift's agent, where your client is a badass and your job is to understand their feelings, their needs, the things going on, to sometimes be the tough person going, no, you know what, Taylor, get back out on that damn stage. This is what you do. Taylor gets back on the stage and goes, oh yeah, I love it. You know what I mean? I'm fighting with Taylor for Taylor's own good.
Yeah.
But our client is a rock star. And then we still have the world of people that think that they have some control over the financial markets, or they're the Wizard of Oz. You come to me, Carl, and I'm going to put together this portfolio. You can't get down the street, which is a bunch of bull. Or I feel like there's bigger gulf than ever between the haves and the have-nots in the financial planning space.
I completely agree. I think there's also a gulf between even I'm going to use this word in an old definitional sense, not in a layered cultural sense. Even the privilege of having these sorts of conversations, like there's a little bit of time and space that's required to even have these. You're just like, I don't know what you're on about, bro. I'm trying to pay my bills. I get that. But even at that level, because I've had those conversations with people who are just like, I don't even know what you're talking. Even at that level, there's some idea of like, why? Like, what's it for? What's the like, even to be seen and heard in a spot where you're like, I don't even have time for that. I'm paying my bills. Oh my gosh, I can make room for that. And you're right about the planning piece. And I've been really thinking a lot about what is uniquely human, because AI is really good at doing. Humans have the potential of being really good at being. And I think what we're talking about here is the need for more presence, the need for more listening, the need for more curiosity at all levels of income and financial struggles. Like, I mean, if I'm barely scraping by and I'm angry about it, which is reasonable, just to have somebody go, yeah, man, there's a reason you're feeling that way. There's a reason there's a systematic reason. It's not just you. There's a systemic reason you're feeling that way. And let's get it out, and let's throw some things in the backyard, and let's do whatever. And then when it's time, let's think about, like, are there some things we could do? And I think planners are becoming more and more aware of this. The calculator side of the job is incredibly important as a technical skill. But it's also, and you can and this, it's incredibly important, and it's worthless in the long term if we don't know where we're going. And so both of those become true. And last analogy, like I was in a self-driving car recently, and I'm a huge fan of self-driving money. Like I can't wait for it. In that Waymo ride, I'll tell you, it felt much safer than the Uber ride right before it.
Really?
Oh, honestly, I was like, this is the most amazing, cool. I rode a couple different times, and I would ride Ubers in between. Like one time we went down this alley and there was a dumpster in the way, and the whole thing was incredible. Self-driving cars felt safer than a human-driven car, but I still had to tell it where I wanted to go. And I also had to tell it, more importantly, mid-journey, if I was like, wait, I want to stop there. And that to me requires a level of curiosity and presence that isn't going to ever be built in to the self-driving car. And it's also never going to be built into the self-driving money.
But I think that clarity is what we have trouble getting to, because we're this jumble of feelings, emotions. I got to pay the bills, right? I'm trying to get ahead. My neighbor's doing this thing. I want to keep up with them. Like I've got this jumble of stuff. I love a story that you tell in your new project about this woman, Maxine. I don't know if you remember Maxine's story, but just this power of order. Can we talk about Maxine for a moment?
Yeah, it's such a real story because there's this huge metaphor. Maxine got referred to me when I was running my financial planning firm. Her husband had recently passed away. It had been weeks, right? They had taken care of all the stuff you do, and she was coming out of the really intense mourning phase and saying, okay, I got some stuff I got to deal with. And some of the stuff was this pile of mail that had arrived. And in Maxine's relationship, her husband was the one that took care of most of the financial matters because she took care of a bunch of other stuff, incredibly important stuff. So Maxine didn't know much about the money, as often is the case with one spouse or the other. And she came in with this literally like a banker's box. Like it looked heavy when she walked in. There was opened mail and half open mail, and then a whole bunch of completely unopened mail. And I remember the emotional, but the very real physical feeling of saying, hey, could I carry that box? Could I carry that weight for you? And we sat down and I said, hey, what if we just took this meeting and we talked. And then I said, hey, would it be okay if between now and the next meeting, I'll go through all this mail. I won't throw anything away, but I'll open it all. I'll organize it in a binder and I'll put the stuff I think you should throw away in the back and we'll just go through it. And she was like, yeah, of course. And I remember when she came back, it was a 1/2-inch 3-ring binder, that whole box, that entire weight, a nicely organized 1/2-inch 3-ring binder, everything hole punched, no more envelopes. And we went through it together. And both the sense when I first took the box, took is not even really the word I like. When I first was able to help her with the box, the sense of relief. And then when she came back, this 3-ring binder and what that points to me is like, there's a very specific application, but I think the broader application too is like, anytime I'm worried or stressed or weighed down with anything but financial, like for instance, if I've been reading the news lately, which is just not a good idea, and I feel overwhelmed, I found it helps a lot to organize the garage or weed the garden. This isn't some woo-woo goofball thing. It's not some California drum circle idea. It's you go from feeling out of control, right? The news, the markets, the concern, your budget, like you go from feeling out of control to getting some small sense of control. If I just organize my desk, I feel a little better. And then what happens is that sense of control expands just a little bit. And again, we're back to where we started, start close in. What's the next smallest thing I can expand my sense? And then suddenly I'm like calling the bank. I'm doing the thing I've been avoiding. And suddenly you're like, why? Well, because this sense of control grew. That's Maxine's story.
What resonated with me from my old job of financial planning, Carl, was that my favorite part of the financial plan was setting up these milestones toward the big goal. Yeah. And so we would meet every 6 months. My client would come in with the news, the economy, all this stuff going on. I wonder what policy is there going to be? What's going to happen with the tax code? Inflation is blah, 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 blah. What's the market going to do? It looks difficult. And I would go to, okay, in your financial plan right here, it says on the milestone, we need to be at $65,000 today. And let's take a look at where we're at. And my client goes from all this stuff to, oh, look, we're $2,000 ahead. So we have some choices now, Carl. We can either slow down saving for this and have some fun today. We can keep the gas on and do more, or we can speed up the goal and do this sooner. Which one would you rather do? And all of a sudden, guess what happens? All this third control outside BS just evaporated. And it was so phenomenal just seeing the power of a little organization. And I think this also speaks to the idea of getting out. I know that I think it's you like having these conversations where people come, is it a retreat at your house or at some place?
Yep.
Just the idea of getting on a plane and getting out of your current mess by itself just puts you at 30,000 feet. And it's so good for your life to do that from time to time, I think.
Totally. Two things I really want to point out. One of my favorite things to do is to take these things that feel, I hinted earlier, I'm a big fan of California, right? But I hinted earlier about like the drums, like it feels ethereal. I think it's part of my job to take things that feel complex and crazy and ethereal and reduce them down. Because what you're talking about with your client story, there's a framework for that. And I just think it's so helpful when people understand what's going on in their minds. The framework is, at the top of a pyramid, if you imagine products, like if we had a pyramid, you imagine products or the foundation of a house, the very, 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 very top is this product idea. And in product, you could put news, market, economy, investments, credit card budgeting out, like whatever, tactical product. And your concerns are almost always at that level. And when you're talking about concerns at that level, you're way out in the branches of the tree. So your idea of like, it feels crazy. Yeah, there's a storm blowing and the branches move a lot. And all you're doing is saying, look, you had intuitively figured out that if I could pull them back to the roots of the tree, and that roots is plan. And I think there's one root foundation underneath plan, which is purpose, a sense of purpose. But I think largely we're all thinking that embedded in the plan is a sense of purpose. If we can get out of those branches, I would just like start to set up habitually. If you feel like you're, unmoored, concerned, worried, to your point, you don't have to get on a plane. I love getting on a plane, but you don't have to get on a plane. Like go on a walk. And if you can rewire your brain that way, so that when you feel that way, and you can start noticing, like, I promise you, you will feel that way every time right now you read the news. When you feel that way, you think, go someplace higher. And I like the higher metaphor. Like, even if you're in like wherever you are, I had a buddy, and I think he's in Iowa, and he was like, yeah, it's a bridge. Like just somewhere where you get perspective. Suddenly you feel a little bit like, oh man, get outside, get your hands in the dirt, touch a tree. And again, not woo-woo. It's just like, it has this ability to go, oh, I was out in the branches of the tree. I'm here. Now, guess what? What you were dealing with out in the branches didn't go away, right? Like that decision about which credit card or which investment or what to do is still there. You just have a different perspective when you're looking at it now.
Well, there's another facet of this that people would worry about my office all the time too. And I know when you were working with people, that was the same, I'm sure, for you, Carl, which is coming in and regretting the past. You've got this wonderful line in your new project that says, you can't hedge yesterday. I'm like, we should all get that tattoo, because how much time have I wasted? And I'm a guy that I think knows better, going, oh, I effed that up. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, one of my new favorite lines that will be in the next project, whenever that is there will never be enough money to pay for all your fears. So I think we have both sides of now. We got the past. You can't hedge yesterday. And I think a lot of shame and blame shows up from yesterday. And you can't pay for all your fears in the future. And that's like worrying about problems that aren't even problems yet. Right? Like, was that Mark Twain? I can't remember what it was, but it was something like, I've had a million problems and some of them happened and a few of them happened, I think.
We were joking a couple of weeks ago about Robert Kiyosaki, about how he's called 47 of the last 2 downturns.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. A broken clock will be right twice a day. Yeah, I love that. So I do think one of the very core, most important things you can do in the never-ending process of making good decisions with money that we often call financial planning is get really clear about where you are today. It's kind of the first step. I used to think that should be easy because it's just facts, right? They're just numbers on a page. It's just a balance sheet. But it turns out that balance sheet is a non-fictional document woven with fictional stories. Like, I wish I would have bought more of that. I told you that was a dumb idea, right? Like, just every line on the balance sheet's got a story. Sometimes they're good stories, sometimes they're bad. And even the good stories are often like, we should have done twice as much. I told you, like, especially when there's a spouse or partner involved. And what often comes up is shame or blame. And you just have to remember that responsibility says that was a dumb idea. Shame says I am dumb. There's a very big difference. And so shame serves no useful purpose. There's no useful purpose for shame. Responsibility, yeah, sure. And maybe even guilt. Okay. So if we can transform those a bit to turn them into, like, instead of losses, we turn them into lessons, then we can start to move on. And sometimes that process of healing from that involves some yelling, some throwing things around, some running really hard in the mountains, like whatever it is for you. Get that all out. Find somebody who's there for it. Somebody who can take it. You probably have to pay them. They're called a therapist, right? And then you can move on to turning it into a lesson. I've got so many of those. I'm sure you do too. So many. There's a piece of property we drive by a couple times a week that we had an offer in for something like, I can't remember what the number was, but it was like $90,000, which was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money, but it was a lot of money back then for us. We backed out of the offer because we weren't able to do it. Like, we went and looked at our budget and we were like, we can't do it. Well, that piece of property just sold for $1.4 million.
Oh my.
right? And but I'm
and
at
even
the point
my response to that, by the way, is
that's exactly right. That's what I was just going to point to. I'm at the point now where I don't do that anymore.
Right.
For that to me, but I was 10 years of that.
Yeah.
And guess what? The kids' soccer field backed up to that property. So I was there. I got the chance to do what you just did to myself for 10 years, a couple times a week. And I did it every time. I was like, gosh, I can't believe, because it sold 3 different times between now and then. And I've seen each one. The first one was like 750. Now I can honestly say I feel it a little bit, a teeny bit, but I largely feel, hey, that was a good decision. You know, but quote unquote, I don't even know if I call it a bad outcome. I used to say it was a good decision with a bad outcome. I'm not even sure it's a bad outcome anymore because the overall outcome of our lives has been fine. But man, the first tendency is exactly what you felt.
Yeah.
And I felt for 10 plus years. And I've got fresher ones that I'm still working through, you know, where I'm like, gosh, again.
Yeah. That's interesting because, you know, I have 2 reactions. Number one is look at your life without that property. Big freaking deal. It doesn't matter. The second one is I heard this wisdom when I was maybe in my 20s. And I try to remind myself all the time, but it's still hard, Carl. I mean, still, I'm 57 years old. It's still hard. I keep reminding myself the past does not equal the future, which is just a way to think about, hey, that happened yesterday. I can't do anything about it. The future is what I'm doing right now. And I can't. Yeah.
Well, so far, this entire conversation has been largely about kind of rewiring our response to certain stimulus. Just learning that, okay, great. When I feel nervous, I'm not going to try to stop feeling nervous. Because by the way, that which you resist persists. So if I try not thinking about a beautiful ice cream cone right now, right? Like it's called the white bear problem in psychology. Like there's no way if I tell you to not think pink elephant, right?
Yeah.
Purple elephant, whatever.
It's there.
So I'm not going to try and resist the stimulus, the news, the nervous, this conversation. I'm just going to try and rewire my response. And my response can go from shame to responsibility. My response could go from shame to a great gratitude, like you did. Like, look at your life now. So my response to feeling nervous about the markets, instead of like trying to figure out which stock I should trade, I'm going to say, oh, that's interesting. I'm feeling that. I'm going to say, hey, what does my plan say? We're not trying to get rid of the stimulus because there's things we can do, but it's largely impossible in the world we live in. We're going to just try and rewire the response.
If only somebody had written a book which kind of encapsulated all this stuff, which took these wild, disparate ideas and built them together in a simple way. If only someone had done that. And it turns out that you were able to do this. It is called Your Money, Reimagining Wealth in 10 Simple Sketches.
101.
What's that?
101 simple sketches.
I said 10, didn't I?
That's just the first chapter.
But wait, there's more. You forgot I was going to do the, but wait, there's more.
Oh, sorry.
Like the old K-Tel Records days.
All right.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'll tell you what, if you buy 10, Carl's going to throw in 91 more for free.
Exactly.
Are you sitting down? 101 simple sketches. By the way, I feel like you and another friend of mine are kind of blood brothers who don't know each other. I look at your work and our friend Austin Kleon, who's been on the show a few times, he very similarly when he talks about the creative process. Do you know Austin at all?
Yeah, I interviewed Austin for 50 Fires, but I stole like an artist from Austin because the physical frame of this book.
Oh, it is.
There's supposed to be an acknowledgement of that. It didn't get in the first printing, which they're already doing the second printing, so it'll be in there. But yeah, his books are 6x6 and these are 7x7 and they're matte finish. Austin's had a huge impact on me despite just having one conversation with him.
Monster impact on me as well. And just both of you have. And thank you so much for mentoring our stackers today, Carl. I appreciate it so much.
Cheers, Joe. That was so fun. Thanks for doing it.
Hey there, stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and I love how Carl Richards is able to take what seems complicated and boil it down to the core, don't you? Well, let's take a page out of Carl's book and do the same with today's trivia. Back in 1938, on today's date, 2 men, Chester F. Carlson and Otto Kornai, figured out how to move a message from a glass slide to a sheet of wax paper. Kornai was not impressed with the results and left the partnership. 10 years later to the day, Carlson revealed the invention to the world. He approached IBM, who passed on the technology, finally selling it to the Haloid Company. Here's today's question. What is the name you and I know the Haloid Company as today? I'll be back right after I go simplify the idea of Joe's mom making dinner for all of us. It's really easy. You just triple the portion size, Ma, for the rest of the crew, and then double it again for me.
What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada? Yes, please.
Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/listen and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/listen.
Did you know Fast Growing Trees is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers? Whether you're planting fruit trees, adding privacy, brightening things up with flowers, or bringing in houseplants, Fast Growing Trees has it all. Even better, they can help you find options that are right for your climate, your space, and lifestyle. Click Order Grow. Every plant arrives healthy with the Alive and Thrive guarantee straight to your door. So if you're ready to get planting, this is the moment. Right now, they have great deals on spring planting essentials, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to our show get 20% off their first purchase when using the code WWO at checkout. That's an additional 20% off. Better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code WWO at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code WWO. Now's the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use WWO to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Go to growingfasttrees.com for details.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey there, stackers. I'm Copy Lover and the guy whose third grade teacher called an original Joe's mom's neighbor Doug. The term xerography is from the Greek words xeros, meaning dry, and graphene, meaning writing. That's the technology that Carlson and Kornai invented on today's date back in 1938, and is why the Haloid Company, who bought the technology, renamed themselves Xerox. And now, 2 guys who copy all my best dance moves. It's Joe and OG.
Hey, this is John in Seattle. And when I'm not telling terrible dad jokes to anyone who will listen, I'm stacking Benjamins.
Big thanks to Carl again for spending time in the basement. And it's funny, OG, like Carl said, we treat money like it's a math problem. So we bring out the calculator. And yet we really need to just, we need to check our emotions at the door. So important. Let's do a headline.
Hello, darlings. And now it's time for your favorite part of the show, our Stacking Benjamin's headlines.
Our headline today comes to us from Investment News. I found this really a compelling discussion on Investment News. And for those of you that don't know Investment News, which is most people, I'm sure, this is a resource for advisors. It's an industry rag, as they call it. So I love when we do a headline from Investment News because of the fact that it's life on the other side of the table. And they had this discussion on Investment News. I will link to it in the show notes page. Advisors weighing in on the benefits of options as a hedge against concentrated stock risk. And it is interesting. We've had a market that's gone up great. In fact, this piece starts off by saying shares of NVIDIA are up 1,250% over the past 5 years. So if somebody was fortunate enough to have purchased NVIDIA 5 years ago, at that time, OG, it wasn't a concentrated position in your portfolio.
Right.
And now, because of the market run, it truly could be a problem in your portfolio because your portfolio now, if you haven't sold any off, is going to go where NVIDIA goes. Well, you have a couple choices. You can, number one, you can sell it right now. Or number two is you could maybe use an option strategy to hedge against the risk that it wrecks your portfolio. Clearly, if NVIDIA goes up, a lot of people would want a piece of that, which is why you might have an option to sell instead of selling it. So the way this works, stackers, is that instead of selling off your NVIDIA or a piece of your NVIDIA, you instead do an option to sell. And that option to sell says, I'm going to sell it at a predetermined price. And in this case, it would be the price that it's trading at right now. And instead of selling it, I'll wait and see if it goes up or down. If it goes down, I'll just sell the option and get the price it's at today. If it continues to go up, then the option expires. I paid a little bit for this quote insurance policy, and then I'm good. But what do you think about using options instead of selling off a piece of your portfolio that might be too concentrated, OG, instead of using options to mitigate some of the risk in the portfolio?
I think we have to talk about the difference between, like, use the right terminology here, because I think a lot of people will confuse this or could confuse this with part of your compensation, right? So you'll say, well, I get options for my pay. I get restricted options for my bonus, or I get non-qualified options for my bonus. It works somewhat similarly in that, you have this grant that has a specific exercise price, but this is a little different. The way that an option contract works on a stock that you already own is just like you talked about. You're making a promise in exchange for either a premium that you're going to receive, some cash today, or a premium that you're going to pay to fulfill the obligation. So NVIDIA is at $180 a share, and you say, I'm okay with it bouncing around because that's what stocks do, but I don't want it to go below 150. And so you can buy insurance at 150 and say, if it dips below 150 between now and the end of March next year, then I get to get out at 150. So if it goes down to 160, then nothing happens. If it goes to 151, nothing happens. If it goes to 132, I've got this piece of paper here that says, whoa. Says here I get to sell at 150. I'm going to exercise it now. I'm going to use my option to get out at 150. And you can do it the other way too. You can say, it's at $180. And if it ever went to 225, I would sell that thing like a hotcake. And in exchange for that promise, you can get some money today. So you can say, well, how strongly do you feel about that? I feel real strongly. If that hits 225 between now and March, I would 100% get out. Guaranteed. Well, put your money where your mouth is. Write it down on a piece of paper and say, I promise to do it. In exchange for that promise, they'll give you some cash today. So you can do both sides of this transaction, and you can do it with or without owning the stock, which makes it even more risky on top of it. Ultimately, from an investment standpoint, let's talk about it that way. So you've got the stock, you've got 1,000 shares, it's $180,000 of your portfolio, it's 85% of your portfolio, and you go, I feel like I should. The right answer is to diversify, right? OG, Joe, like that's the right answer. But man, I just don't want to, because if I do, and this thing goes from 180 to 360, I just lost out on 180 grand. I need you to take that out of your mind. You have to evaluate your investment decision based on what it is today, the information that you have today. If you have $180,000 of NVIDIA stock and you have a $200,000 investment portfolio, it's overweighted, and you have to diversify that if you want to be smart from an investment perspective. That doesn't mean it's not going to go up. That doesn't mean you say, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it concentrated and it doesn't go up 10x from here. And you say, I told you so. I knew I was glad I didn't diversify that. Now I've got $1 million. This is a way better deal. Absolutely, that could happen. But the thing that happens with diversification is you trade away the opportunity to make a killing in exchange for never getting killed. That's the trade. I can't tell you what's going to happen with any individual stock, nor can anyone, which is why buying an ETF or buying a diversified portfolio of big companies and small companies and US-based ones and non-US-based ones makes a lot of sense to me, because it's way easier to say, what is the overall economy going to do over the next 30 years of my life? It's going to grow. That's what I believe in my soul. I'm not smart enough to say which AI chip manufacturer is going to pull out ahead, which raindrop is going to hit the bottom of the windowsill the fastest. I'm not smart enough to pick that.
People who are new to options may be thinking right now, they're like, wait, I heard options are this risky thing. And to your point, especially when you talked about trading options without the underlying money, that's incredibly risky.
Without the underlying stock, yeah.
Yeah, without the underlying stock. This thing we're talking about is not risky at all because you're willing to give up.
I disagree with that.
Well, you're willing to give up the position, number one. Number two is you also covered up the risk of if it goes down by buying the option to sell it today. So where is my risk then?
Well, there's two things. First, it's the cost structure. So I use the example of NVIDIA being at $180 a share today, and you're saying, hey, I'll take the first $30, right? I'll go to 150. It will cost you today, as the day we record it, about $8 per share to ensure that at 150. So number one, if you have 1,000 shares, $8, that's $8,000 of insurance premiums. All you guys out there shaking your head going, I can't buy whole life insurance. It's ridiculous. And you're going to spend $8,000 on NVIDIA options, NVIDIA insurance, basically.
I want to bring you something up for the new stackers who aren't familiar with the greatest money show on earth, Circus, and how we put this together. OG doesn't see these pieces before we go live. He doesn't see any of it. The very first thing any advisor says, OG, in this piece that is the wellspring from where I thought we'd have the great discussion that we're having, the very first advisor said, most people see this strategy of, hey, I'll just place an option. And they think, oh, great. Yeah. Why the hell wouldn't I do that?
Let's do it.
He said, but then they see the cost of this insurance, because that's what it is. It's an insurance policy. They see the cost. Most people, the guy uses the word appetite. Most people don't have the appetite for the amount of money it's going to cost. You're paying so much money to try to stay even that you're not staying even. You're not staying anywhere close to even because you're spending so much money on this insurance policy. That's the option.
I mean, so if the stock is 180 and you want to insure it for 150, so you're taking a $30 per share loss to get your insurance to pay out, right? And then it costs you $8 for the next, 5 months? So $8 on 180 is 5%, a little bit less than 5% of the, you have to make so much money just to offset the premium of the insurance, the option cost, that it's really hard. So I think one of the risks is this $8,000, you could be doing other things with it. The second thing is that it ignores the volatility and the fact that generally speaking, the market goes up. And I can't talk about NVIDIA saying, I know it's going to go up. Today could be the highest price it ever has. There was a day where Kodak was at an all-time high, and then it went down from there and ceases to exist today. That's happened. And it's happened for Pan Am, and it's happened for thousands and thousands of other companies, which is why buying an ETF that's largely diversified is such a great idea, because you don't have to play the game of which one of these tech companies is going to be great tomorrow. Who cares? You just own everything, and it's self-cleaning. When something just doesn't do well, it falls off and it's replaced by the thing that is. So it's totally fine. But if you look at this purely from a volatility standpoint, so there's some chance the stock's at 180 right now. I got my piece of paper that says I can get out at 150, and it goes to 148, and you go, ha, 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 I'm out at 150. And 3 days later, it's back to 180. Now what happened? You lost $30 a share to save $2 a share, to save yourself from the volatility. That is the very thing that gets you the upside that you're looking for. This is the thing that people have to wrap their head around. Volatility is both sides. When you see a stock goes, oh my gosh, this stock goes up, it's up 10x in the last 5 years. That's one side of volatility. It's the good side. It's the side we like. It's the fun part, but it can work the other way just as easily. And so when the stock goes from 120 to 180, what was the most recent one that went crazy? AMD or something. So I think it was AMD, just skyrocketed one day. The people who had those other side of the options, they thought they were, hey, we got this free money. We can get these, they had a huge risk there too. So there's no such thing as a free lunch here. This is the biggest piece. If you're worried about over concentration in your portfolio because of a stock, you have to do one of two things. You have to either sell the stock and diversify it, or build more money around the stock that you have.
So if you say a lower percentage of your portfolio then.
Yeah. If you look at your brokerage account and you go, man, I got lucky. I bought 1,000 shares of NVIDIA 5 years ago, and now that stuff's worth 200 grand in my account. Then the rest of your money needs to not be tech. You know what I mean? Like your 401k needs to be in small companies and international, and your Roth needs to be in small companies and international, because largely a large company fund is going to be heavy tech. So you have to just offset that. Or the smart thing is you just say, okay, I did well. I made a killing on this stock. I got lucky, admit it. And just go, I need to take some of this off the table. Take some of these profits off the table, diversify it, pay your capital gains tax, and move on with life. And if this money is in a qualified account and there's no tax issues, shame on you. You should be diversified.
I think for an advanced investor, so we've got kind of different levels of stackers. We got people that are bricklayers. You're just building your foundation. Throw any idea of building your foundation out of options out the window, because there is no foundation. I mean, this is a Three Little Pig story, right? Build the house of brick. Options are not.
Options are a financial instrument whose intrinsic value, the end value, the terminal value of the option contract is zero. All options end at the end of their term at zero. Everything else between zero and whatever you pay for it and what you sell it for is all volatility and speculation. Doesn't mean you can't make money. There's plenty of go on Wall Street bets on Reddit, and you'll see somebody tomorrow that goes, do you see what I put $100 in this, made 47,000 in 3 minutes. It happens. Absolutely, it does.
I think for the advanced Benjamin builder, that you've built up a sizable portfolio, and it's almost like somebody who's a good fisherman. I've been going fishing a little more lately with my buddy Todd. Todd is a great fisherman, goes out all the time. OG, he knows exactly what lure to use in each situation. He knows exactly, he knows the bait, he knows the depth, he knows the part of the lake. And for those people that are much more of a surgeon, knowing where to use an option can be a valuable part of your risk strategy. But the thing I want to highlight that you said earlier is that the biggest mistake I see, and I see this 95% of the time with options when people are just starting out, is that they're using it to get rid of the volatility in the position. You set your option way too close, way too close to the point that it's at now, and you end up neutering your portfolio. I think what we really need to highlight, stackers, is you need that volatility. You have to have that volatility, because the volatility on the upside is the only thing that's going to make it so you don't need to save dollar for dollar every piece of your retirement. You want your money to do it, and using options willy-nilly, as mom says, to control risk in your portfolio is just going to be a disaster, just an absolute unmitigated disaster. So that's frankly why I don't use them. I think they can be good, but I think you really got to be an expert fisherman and go, oh, guess what? I've got this one little case. People hear covered call strategies. I'm not going to get into what a covered call strategy is, but when you first heard about covered calls and somebody, OG, explained covered calls to you, I was like, why the hell wouldn't I do that every second of every day?
Free money.
This
Infinite
just
money
makes
glitch.
So much sense. And then you get in, you start looking at the call options, and you see where the pros are pricing these things. It is a ton of work for almost no juice, because these people aren't stupid. The algorithms they're using aren't stupid. These people have this stuff priced so professionally that you've got to, spend a ton of time to eke out just a few drips. And I don't know, after playing the covered call game a little bit myself, I go, why would I waste my time doing this?
It works when it works. And then when it stops working in a very, very fast hurry.
Very, very quickly. So love the idea of option stackers. I've seen options a lot in the market, and I think that's because we've had so much talk lately, OG, of volatility. People start going, oh, volatility. How do I control
all-time high?
How do I control downside risk?
Congratulations.
I'm going to use options. I'll link to this piece on our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. One thing it does talk about, OG, that I worry about, there's some guy throwing shade here going, sometimes advisors don't want to use options just because your advisor doesn't understand options. When you read that, you'll read that in the Wall Street Journal, right? Somebody just throwing shade. What do you think about that when somebody says, well, Is the problem, OG, that you don't understand options? That's why you don't want to use them.
I always think it's interesting when I go to my semi-annual physical and I will have recently read or listened to like Peter Attia or, somebody about something. And I'll spout out something to my physician who's a really great doctor. He's a great bedside manner and is very forward thinking. And I'll say, well, statistically, blah, 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 blah. And he'll just go, uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. And, or if he's feeling a little sporty, he'll kind of hit me back with, the kind of 201 of that or the 301 of whatever I just said. And then I look like I got hit by a bus because I don't know any of those words. There's so many syllables in the doctor words that I don't know. It's not that he didn't know to talk to me about it. He just had already decided that it was so not important that he wasn't going to spend any amount of the time with me to talk about the thing that he didn't need to tell me how smart he was to say, well, just so you know, I did all this research on this thing that has no material importance to you whatsoever. But it's, you don't need to know about it. So there's a lot of that. Sometimes when you are working with a professional, they have already thought about that and they've already decided that they're not going to talk about that because it's not appropriate. It's not that they don't know. It's just that they don't have any value in bringing that up.
I found when I was an advisor, I loved working with engineers, but engineers were most likely the person that was going to do in my office exactly what you just said. And so I would have to go deep with them first to cure the fear that I didn't know what I was talking about. And then I could say to them, but you know what? This doesn't matter because you haven't saved any money. If I had said you haven't saved any money at first, they would have thought it was a smokescreen.
Right.
But once I went down the rabbit hole, like your doctor doing the 201 language, 201, 301 doctorate level language. And then he says, yeah, but OG, look at what you're shoving in your pie hole.
Then my doctor's favorite phrase the other day, this is so great. We were talking about blood pressure and, whatever. And he goes, I said, do you think I should, the guidance says these numbers and I'm kind of right at them. And do you think I should take a pill for it? And he goes, no, you should eat more or less. And I was like, what? He's like, you know how when you're like, I should eat more? Yeah, do that less. A lot less, actually. Eat more or less, way less than you do now.
Oh, that's great. We will, as I mentioned, link to this piece in the show notes.
Get all your option trades at stackingbenjamins.com/options trading for the win. Subscribe to our option trading course. No, don't.
No,
We don't
there
have
will
that.
never be.
We'll never have that.
We'll have some guides. You can meet with OG.
Yeah.
There's so many things you can do.
You do a lot of good stuff, or YOLO your entire life savings into NVIDIA options.
If I was going to do that, I'd just go to Vegas.
Actually, I think Vegas would be more fun.
Have the whirlwind weekend, get it over with. So much more fun than watching it slowly circle the drain.
I mean, it slowly circles the drain in Vegas too, but there's a lot of hope when you're pulling that Wheel of Fortune arm and it's like, Wheel of Fortune, beep, boop, beep, boop. And then you press the button, you're like, come on, hit the 1,000. And it's like $20. You're like,
and there it is. Or I'd lost another 20 and then another
or
20.
so I've been told. I don't know.
Yeah, rumor has it.
Rumor has it. That's how that sounds and goes.
Let's mosey out on the back porch. Just a few things for you, stackers. If you'd like to help us make episodes, we take your questions. We had a great question episode on Monday. Also, by the way, if you love the Q&A on YouTube, we have an entire channel of our YouTube page, which is just your questions. So to ask your questions, head to stackingbenjamins.com/voicemail. And if you love that, just dive into our youtube.com/stackingbenjamins. We also hang out on Instagram, on TikTok, increasingly, where OG's a big star. 188,000 people and counting watched OG
counting
lately. I'm going to begin doing some TikTok lives, I think, just
You'll
to have
never
some
catch
fun
me, bro.
over there. Nope, you won't see OG there.
No,
But
I'm just saying you'll never catch me.
Oh,
I've got such a lead on this. I'm so viral.
Yeah, I think my biggest TikTok is maybe 1,500, and yours is I know, right? I love the discussions that we have on Spotify. I try to put up polls from time to time, so feel free to say hi to us and chat up the episode on Spotify as well. And if you want to just join the conversation, we have local meetup groups right now in Seattle and in the Twin Cities. And we have our basement Facebook group. So if we don't have one where you live, just go to Facebook and put in Stacking Benjamin's Basement in Facebook. You'll get to join other stackers chatting, not just about the show, but people ask questions and generally hang out. So lots of ways to get involved in the Stacking Benjamins community. All right, that's going to do it for today. Doug, man, you got it from here. What are the 3 things we should learn from today's show?
So what's stacked up on our to-do list for today? First, take some advice from Carl Richards. Does your financial plan seem complicated? Have a bias towards simplifying. Not only will your life feel better, your financial plan will also probably be better. Second, take some advice from our headline, Options? Not necessary, because again, that complicates the plan. But the big lesson? Explaining options to Joe's mom is futile. She prefers Carl Richards' keep it simple approach. The only option she talks about is, quote, whether to buy an option to trade us to the neighbors. Wait, what? Thanks to Carl Richards for joining us today. We'll also include links in our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2025. And is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. Joe gets help from a few of our neighborhood friends. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.
So I have this problem, which is that
there's a pill for that.
Well, maybe not for this one. I'm headed to Dollywood, which is a theme park I never thought that I wanted to go to. My lovely spouse, because we're headed to the national park in West Virginia, my lovely spouse said, we have a little bit of extra time before my daughter and her boyfriend join us on Friday. Let's just see what we could do. We're going to have most of the day on Thursday. Well, what can we do while we're in the Smoky Mountains? We've already gone to Great Smoky Mountain National Park. We've done the Blue Ridge Parkway, Shenandoah National Park. All those places are beautiful, OG. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, my wife, who does not love theme parks, goes, why don't we go to Dollywood? So I find out that this park, so I start doing all this research. The number one thing to do at Dollywood is eat the cinnamon bread. Apparently there's this bread that's cinnamon and icing. And I saw a video of a dude who he's already eaten all the cinnamon bread and he shows the bottom of the little tin it comes in and it's still hot. Well, of course it's piping hot when you get it. And this loaf, all of the cinnamon sugar and the icing coagulate at the bottom.
Okay, go on.
And he's got his face in the tin and he looks at the camera for a second and goes, stop judging me. And then shows his head back in the tin. I'm trying so hard to control my weight and my impulses. Talk about what your doctor said. This is why I thought of this.
Yeah. Eat more or less.
Stop doing the thing. Stop doing that. I don't know how the hell I'm going to keep myself from buying like 10 loaves of cinnamon bread.
No, you just do it once. You know, you can have one day. This is the big myth about there is no perfection. So just that's your day off. Just have one day. Now, what you can't do is you can't eat 2 loaves, buy 3, eat them on the road, then take one home and eat it later. You know, if you're going to put down 5 loaves, put down 5 loaves in one day, bro. Like, get it. Get after it. That's it. You know,
your doctor told you that. Your doctor said, here's what you do.
Get it. That's what he said. There's a guy that I follow on Instagram that is a golf person. His name is Manolo. And some people are familiar with Manolo, but recently he talked about getting in shape. And this might be applicable to you.
This is advice for me. Okay.
Hello, everyone, and happy Christopher Columbus Day. Although he was not a very nice guy, he was a courageous perro, and it takes courage to do some courageous, like getting into the shape. Did you wear your shirt all summer? Even though you said this was the summer that you were going to get so nasty and so fit, and you were going to get ripped up, and you were going to have more packages than FedEx in your abdomen. You didn't do it. That's because it starts in October of the previous year if you want to be a nasty perro princesa and be fit and fantastic. See, he's about to train somebody, and that is what the gymnasium looks like. A lot of you don't know what a gym looks like. You should. So I'm going to start putting out that I'm going to be doing nasty shit all the way until the end of the year so I can make sure that the tanky topic comes off for the pool next year. It starts right now. This is not a story. This is a legit post. Watch it over and over again. Do some courageous shit. Change your life. Change your golf game. Change your fitness. It starts with your new boyfriend, Jim. That's it.
Starts with your new boyfriend, Jim. Joe.